My name is Bruce Lisman. Thank you all for being here. It's great to sit with others who would like to be your governor. I grew up in Burlington. I went to Burlington schools, Champlain Elementary. Before that was H.O. Wheeler. Burlington High School, go Seahorses, and University of Vermont. My mother worked at UVM in order that her sons, my older brother and I, would go there, but also get an employee discount. My father was a school teacher after a long and unhappy career as a businessman. He had a heart attack at a young age. We found ourselves thrown together in a class at UVM. I came to deeply appreciate sleeping later, and he appreciated the fact that he was taking notes for me. It was a great experience, and he was a great guy, a teacher at the South Burlington High School. This is an interesting moment for our state. And this happens to be a most interesting discussion that we're going to have. A fellow named Bill Gates moved his company from Albuquerque to Seattle, forever finishing Albuquerque and changing the very direction that Seattle would take. I would travel there, and they used to have a gigantic billboard that said, "The last person out of Seattle, turn the lights off." A guy named Bezos grew up in Seattle and formed Amazon, thus ensuring forever that would be an ecosystem of technology, only to be replaced by Apple's hometown. I think the opportunity in front of us is not simply to look at entrepreneurs or find new ones, but rather build an economy so that the few entrepreneurs that are here today will be joined by the many. Outside of Chittenden County, the economy is not just slow, it's in decline. Bennington and Rutland, Windsor and Windham are facing Northeast Kingdom-like outcomes. I enjoy the opportunity to help change the direction of our state. Thank you. Let me give you 4 or 5 ideas that we ought to start almost immediately. First, we don't know our employers well at all. Not our large out-of-state ones, not our large in-state ones, not our mid-sized, and we need to form a calling effort ASAP so we can develop a shared relationship that would identify challenges for them and opportunities for us. 96% of our businesses are small businesses. They account for about 65% of the entire workforce in the state. To us, they're a convenience store. To them, it's a business. We need to understand them better, in part because they need our help, in part because research shows that a significant part of employment growth in America comes from really a small number of what they call gazelles, fast-growing companies that we need to find before they leave. Think about My Web Grocer or Dealer.com. All started with small numbers, grew to big numbers. Second, education, higher education matters a great deal. We have 40,000 kids, most of whom come from another state or even another country. Champlain reports that they placed 45% of their class in Vermont. UVM had 35% placed in Vermont. That leaves a large number of students in our higher education system around the state that we can bring here. Orientation, systematic programs. I'd like to talk briefly about a technology transfer program at the University of Vermont. It's very special. They use their research to change the nature of research to commercialization to businesses. If we roll it out across the state, there's big opportunity. Let me give you some examples. They have created 153 patents, 47 licenses, 21 companies have been created, 16 of which are in some fashion have an equity interest by UVM. Let's send them out to the hospitals, to colleges, and to universities, and any place where a group of engineers are together, and the outcome is going to be a good one. Finally, let's expand the tax credit program that would encourage angel investors, particularly on VSET dedicated portfolio companies. Additionally, I'd sweep all the resources we have that relate to economic development into one place. Even if they reside elsewhere, we need to manage them as one suite. Fundamentally, what we are asking of small businesses is to do better, but we offer them no insight nor help. And so I would tell you, the threats to our economy have never been greater. The penalty for inaction have never been larger, and the reward for success never greater. Thank you. For areas outside of Chittenden County, it's maybe the focus should be on retaining the businesses we have, in particular the commercial communities that are still there. Bennington County and Addison County and most of the rim along the south, and of course, you know, the ones up north have lost population and workforce. Bennington's going to suffer a partial loss of the Energizer plant, a largely predictable outcome considering their parent has been restructured. These are really important challenges. I think entrepreneurs often arise naturally from the community. We can enhance it. We can have VSET open in areas beside Burlington and Middlebury. Could move further south. We can offer up the University of Vermont's tech transfer expertise. Wherever there are hospitals and wherever there are colleges, intellect resides there. We could have, and I still think there's hope, the remaining engineers at the nuclear plant in Brattleboro, those who are not just part-time, have, because they're engineers, spend their life thinking about how to make things better. And given the opportunity, I think they would find some opportunities to create a new enterprise. On balance, I think the thickest population centers of greater Chittenden County will naturally provide the best opportunities to create entrepreneurs. But I think whomever is governor will have to work in an incredible fashion to convince the people of the state that a coalition for economic growth is the most essential ingredient to future economic growth. Without it, it'll be torn apart by advocates who say, I need the money here, I need the money there. Economic growth is the principal goal that we need to pursue. Thank you. The economics of it have been insufficient to generate lots of capital going into it. On the other hand, the need is there. Now we know that even the minimum standards of the last 2 years aren't sufficient to support the environment and economy we'd like. The further away you get from metropolitan areas, the worse it is. Route 91 and other north-south, east-west commercial routes are sometimes without coverage. And companies I know complain bitterly about it. Can't keep track of their workers, can't keep track of their trucks unless they go to a different kind of technology. And so it's a real issue. I think the truth is that the last mile may not be sufficient, but I think we can broaden our opportunities by focusing more attention, see if we can find other providers as well as the existing providers to give us more in areas where there are still people and still traffic. I think new technologies will be overtaking some of the existing technologies over the next 5 years. That presents a real challenge for us because as soon as we think we're done, we'll be overtaken by new ideas. And the second part of it, of course, is we'd like that technology here first. And I think the opportunity for us is to bring some of those providers here. Chittenden County is growing at a rate of about 70% of the national average. Those of us who live in Chittenden County often complain about congestion at drive time in the morning and the evening, but it isn't growing that fast after all. The question about demographics is an interesting one, but maybe it shouldn't be our prime focus of discussion. In a lot of ways, all of my colleagues here have offered up an array of all of the above. I think an economy is a complicated being. Hardly anybody can figure out the damn thing. It's mostly unpredictable, and those who attempt to predict it are almost wrong inevitably over the very near term. Most of the big things that have happened in this country have been, if not unpredictable, at least sudden and emergent. And the consequences of that, oftentimes good, are things that change the nature of what we think about. Earlier I said Seattle was a dump, and then it became Jupiter itself. Albuquerque was really at the cusp of fantastic growth, and if you've been there, you know it never got there. So these are things that can change because it is America. On the economy, however, it isn't one thing, it isn't two things, it isn't three things, it isn't even 4 or 5 or 6 things. It's a lot of them done simultaneously. I will tell you that for the first time in maybe 15 years, though, I think there's a coalition for growth that's developed. It's represented by all the candidates focusing on economic growth or economic development or renewal as a principal theme. But for the first time in a long time, there's a broad coalition. It isn't just business, it isn't just students, it isn't just social service people, it isn't just the police department, it isn't municipalities, it's everyone. And if we don't take advantage of it, we're going to miss the opportunity of a lifetime. Thank you. I favor repealing it for all the reasons that they've said. It's a complicated piece of legislation that is genuinely a bad piece of legislation. It wasn't well thought out. Research was underwhelming, and the evidence, frankly, isn't there. So we have issues of caps, which are unfair, particularly to those who are efficient spenders. We force mergers, even though there are some schools that are exceptional, are small, and actually don't spend a lot per student. And then, of course, this bill does nothing about the quality of our classroom and general outcomes. That's why I think it should be dumped and we should start again. Now, not everything, I don't think everything should either have a moratorium or should be repealed. I just happen to think there are 2 or 3 things that should go. I think there are better ways of doing this. The people asked for change. This was a crescendo that we started hearing 3 or 4 years ago. It took the legislature too long to get there. You remember, they and the governor moved $28 million out of the education fund to fill holes elsewhere and didn't understand how badly it damaged people. Let's start again. I have a strong belief, very strong belief, in the intelligence, common sense, and power of people who vote. If we wonder why apathy rises, particularly around town meetings, this is why. They asked for change and got a bill that's going to hurt them. I'll just tell you that Montgomery is among the best schools in the state. All of us, I think, know it. It doesn't spend that much. If they merge with their neighbor, I'm pretty sure they're going to be spending more, but the outcomes are going to be less. Thanks. I think there are a lot of great stories. I thought you were heading for the fellow who did Easy Wider and went to Green Mountain Coffee. That's an exciting story. Yes. Immensely innovative, immensely creative, saw something that you say now, why didn't I think of that? I love coffee. And the answer is we weren't thinking the way he was. And he thought about it in a completely different way, imagining a cup of coffee at the center of our world, whereas I used to think it just was the center of my desk, and imagining that flavor would matter so much to all of us. It's a different company, and I worry about where they're actually based. I think it's Burlington, Mass. But nonetheless, it's one of the most exciting stories in America. Thank you, Mark, and thank you all for staying for this long. I detect a few empty seats. I want to tell you that I think this is the most important moment for Vermont. It's been an unpredictable 15 years generally, an unpredictable 10 years, an unpredictable 5, and the next sequence will probably be the same. An athlete is often told to stand on the balls of your feet and get ready for anything that might come at you. I fear that our state is on the heels of its feet, not prepared for what might come next. I don't know any more than you do what will happen, but we need to get ready for it. A strong economy, all the action steps I've spoken about earlier, engagement with a citizenry that is suspicious of their own government. The natural partnership between the private sector and the public sector has been broken by a really bad run of governance in our state. I'd like to be your governor, but what I really would like to see is our economy stronger, a different dynamic, not just in Chittenden County, but in the counties outside, in that in 5 or 6 years we could imagine population growth expanding in Bennington, or Rutland, or Brattleboro, or all the towns and commercial centers that are so essential to us. There's lots to be done here. Phil is right, affordability is a huge factor. Property taxes is a big part of it. But the whole nature of how our government interacts with you and with me is at stake here. And I imagine a government not built for its own convenience, but rather built for the people themselves. Thank you very much.
paid for by Lisman for Vermont, Beverly Biello, Treasurer.